There's an easy way to open almost any garage door. What's up YouTube? I'm going to show you how to do this effect in DaVinci Resolve and Blender. I saw another guy do this, but he used After Effects. So I'm going to show you the first part in Blender, that's the exploding garage door, and the second part is how to mask everything and do everything correctly in DaVinci Resolve. So I hope you follow along, and if you need to rewind, that's fine. Let's get started. So I used F-Spy to actually orientate my camera with the image. Then we need to add a plane. Press Shift A to add a plane and then rotate it using RY -90. Then push it along the X-axis and select the edge and extrude it out using G and Y. Select the other edge, G and Y, and then G and Z to bring the other one up. Then what you need to do is right click and click Subdivide. At the bottom, make it sure it's about 25 and then go to Vertex Select mode and move all those edges up. This is a sort of easy way to make a curved surface, and it's nice because you've got some control over where the points go. Just make sure it lines up with your garage door. Then in edit mode, press 3 on your keyboard and then press E to extrude all the different faces, just bigger so it makes the garage door a little bit thicker. Then you'll see on the left hand side there's an annotation pen. We want to be in object mode and press N on your keyboard, then go to the tool and make sure surface is selected. Then draw a few lines over the top of your actual image. The next thing we need to do is press F3 on our keyboard and make sure cell fracture is an add-on and you've added that in the preferences. Click the Annotation Pencil on the top right. There's different options, but for this we're using the pencil. Make sure your source limit is set to around 50. Make sure you choose smooth interiors and keep all the settings the same as mine. Collection, we're going to add all these different pieces into a collection called Garage. Click OK and it'll break all those pieces apart. Press N on your keyboard to delete the Annotation Pencil at the bottom and then rename the original plane that we destroyed to Original, and then go to the top by your filters and make sure those 3 views are able and hide all 3. You don't want that plane visible in your renders. Now go to the Shading tab. This is where it gets interesting. Rename that to Garage Texture. I'm just going to be using a screenshot that I used for the garage, and I'm going to import that as an image texture. So press Shift D and go find Texture, Image Texture. Go find that in your file system. Now go to the UV editing window. On the right hand side, make sure you select those all in edit mode. Press U on your keyboard and project from view. This gives you the entire projected image. Really cool. Notice when we go to the layout, we don't see anything. That's because we need to go to the shader editor, select an object and assign the garage to it. An easy way to do this is to select that object, select the group at the top and right click and say select objects, then press Ctrl L and choose material, and this will automatically set all your materials. Press Shift A to add a light, particular sun. Press G and Z to move it along the Z axis. Go to the light properties, make sure it's about 9. You can also fiddle with the angle slightly. This will give you softer shadows. Now if you go back to your view, you can play around with it to make sure you do not get those strange lines on the garage door. However, if you render this in cycles, you should be able to get rid of most of those lines just by playing with the position of the light. That's kind of important and can be a pain in the ass. So just move it around until you think it's happy. We need to add a floor that the garage is going to fall on, so G and Z, and we're just going to use the edge select mode to move those vertices using G plus Y on the keyboard and then G plus Z to move that one out. Now we're going to extrude the side upwards. So we go E plus Z to extrude it up and then E plus Y to actually move it on the Y axis. Now what we need to do is make sure we G and Z it all the way behind so that it has something to fall on. If you're not happy, you can always click your camera view to actually get a better perspective. On the bottom right, if you click front, you'll see more alpha transparency in that view. So now what we need to do is actually give the floor some physics. So we go to the physics tab, we add a rigid body, make sure that rigid body is set to passive, that's very important. Make sure you select mesh, set the friction level much higher, that's really important, and the margin 0.0005. That makes your collision index work a lot better. Now select one of the actual items, add a new rigid body, make sure it's active, make it 20 kilograms or so, choose a convex hull is fine. Make sure the friction is set much higher so it doesn't bounce around. Collision 0.0005 or 4 around there. and then press space and it should fall. Now we need to copy that to all the other objects. So select the active one, right click that group, select objects, and then go to Object, Rigid Body, Copy from Active. Now all of your items should fall. But some of them will actually fall in through the floor. We can fix that. There's a few things I always do to try and fix that. First, go to your scene properties. At the bottom you can delete the bake. You can also go to that split, which makes sure the things don't jump around after it starts playing the animation. Make sure your soles are set to 120. This is important so that it actually works out the collisions when the items fall on the floor much quicker. It does take a bit more CPU processing time, but look at that, we got a great result. If that doesn't work for you, then go to your edit mode and choose your faces. Press 3 on your keyboard and choose those 2 particular faces in face select mode and press E and extrude it down. More geometry always helps when stuff is falling on the floor. Now what we need to do is go to cycles, make sure you use branch, that's what I always use, 8 samples for the render, find an output path that you want to render this out and use a PNG RGBA. Then go to your denoising data tab. That's really important that you enable that. Since we're only using 8 render cycles, we want to denoise this particular image. Now go to the composition tab at the top. Choose use nodes and search for denoise. This is really important. Add that in. It'll denoise your image in composition. Connect those 3 lines up and connect the final one to your image, and if you render this out now, you'll see there is a background which we do not want, but we can fix that pretty easily by going to our film properties and setting transparency. Let's render that out again. Notice that we still have the floor. We actually want the floor to be invisible and just be a shadow catcher, so go to object mode, select the floor, go to your shadow catcher visibility at the bottom, which is under that tab for the object properties, and choose shadow catcher. This will fix the issue. Now what we need to do is actually render this whole entire scene out, and we have a PNG of a falling door. Within DaVinci Resolve you need 3 recordings, one of you doing your little hand motion, another of the falling door on top of that, and a third one which actually has an open door. Notice how the open door is put right on the top, and you can bring those ones in line. You can control B and slice those up just to... Now right click new fusion clip. Go to your fusion tab and make sure you sort everything out. Make sure you check the first and press 1 on your keyboard to see what that is. Let's rename that to background. That's our hand movement. Now go to media in 2, that's our falling door, and rename that to falling door. Go to the third one, and that's our open door, as you can see, and rename that to open door. Now what we need to do is actually mask out that door so that it actually shows through onto the next layer. What we can do is add a polygon in and select that polygon, and then just draw a few points around the door on our first layer. When we finish, we can connect that up. All we need to do is go to the bottom left and connect up the blue to the blue. If you don't see what you like, we can always invert that. So click on that polygon and click on invert. Now we have an open door, which is exactly what we want. Now the part of the clip where I am on the background as well as the falling door go into merge node 1, as you can see, and that gets passed to merge node 2, which goes into our media out 1. So what we need to do now is actually notice that the door is actually not showing up correctly, and that's because the door is on the foreground. We need to change that to make sure the door goes to the background. Yellow is background and green is the foreground for our merge node. Now it actually plays correctly and we have pretty good results. There's however one problem, and that is with my hand. My hand is still blocking the frame on merge node 1, so what we're going to have to do is mask out my hand to give it a correct 3-dimensional effect. So what we can do there is just add in a polygon and go to frame 1. This is really important. Make sure you start on frame 1 and start masking out your hand. There's a bit of motion blur there, but this gives you correct dimensional, 3-dimensional sort of perspective on your image. You can connect that up to the blue merge node 1 and click invert if you don't see what you want. Now it's important that you step through every frame, and it's always more painful, but it gives you a much better effect. And at the end of this particular tracking, you can generally even move the entire thing out the way, and this means you can show the entire door. This gives you quite a nice effect. I hope you enjoyed this video. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't, and see you again next time.